All right. Hello, everybody. Happy 2025 and welcome to BB's first event of the year. My name is Sarah Horid. I'm a steering committee member, BB steering committee member, and also a co-organizer of the past three book clubs that we had at BB last spring 2024. And this brought us to this event, the momentous spiritual that we have today. So to save our valuable time with the author today, my introductions of her will be very brief, and this is something we agreed upon. I encourage you all to go back to the email communications we had to read her bio and to engage in the additional resources that we shared from her own website and her own work. As I am admitting, my introductions are not going to do full justice of Nushin Asan's accomplishments and accolades. So, a licensed architect, educator, entrepreneur, philanthropist, leader, and author, and so much more, Nushin Asan is an Iranian woman architect and a true trailblazer in the architectural world. We are incredibly honored and thrilled to have her with us today. She has 5 decades of experience over 3 different continents, and she actually founded her own firm in Iran in 1974. That was an extraordinary achievement at the time when few women in the US have been in this occupation in our industry. Her career exemplifies resilience and showcases the transformative power of design. She is the founder of Second Opinion Design and has championed the concept of the spirit of space, which is blending spiritual and practical elements of design to uplift and energize spaces. Her influence extends far beyond design. Nushin has taught at renowned institutions, including Rensselaer, Harvard, and AA in London. Her pioneering work, philanthropy and advocacy for women, has earned her prestigious awards, the most recent of that being the James J. Dudley Lewis Foundation's 2024 Lifetime Achievement Award, which she got last year. In 2022, Nushin published her memoir, Nushin Memoir, The Making of a Woman Architect, in which she chronicles her extraordinary life filled with both triumphs and challenges. Today, we are privileged to hear directly from her and gain insights from her experiences and enduring lessons. Welcome, however you would like to do that, with icons to Nushin Jan. Welcome, Nushin Jan.
So much, Sarah June. I really appreciate. I have to ask. I have to start with thanking the BB organizers and specifically Mani June, Shadi June, Lily June, and all the other steering committee members who I'm just getting to know today. I am very, very honored to be asked for this discussion, and I hope I'll be some use. However,
we are officially beginning the main part of the Q&A. So I'm going to start with the first question, and the question goes: you have shown incredible tenacity, resilience, and fearlessness in overcoming challenges. What has been your main source of exuberance and confidence during the difficult times portrayed in your memoir?
oh my God, that will bring me back in my childhood, and the fact that I have to answer in one word that fate has been the running challenge. I mean, running forces for me. And the story behind that, it's a little bit long, but I'm going to try to shorten it as possible, as much as possible. And that is, I was born in a family that my parents were both Muslim. And then I was about 1 year old when my parents, in a very unique way, independent of each other, they became Baha'i. the story of how they become Baha'i is so interesting and so unique that I really suggest that you read the book in order to get that unique culture of Iran and especially our family. However, I don't want to get there, but nevertheless, I was, due to another story, which is long, I was a sick child. I was dropped by my sisters through flight of several stairs when I was 6 months old. And I was sick. And from that time until I was 14, I had 14 different operations. But because of my illness and because of my father's decision of staying away from the university and intellectual, who he was a philosopher, he was a professor, he was a very learned person, he quit everything and decided to go and live in a village. And his most goal was to teach others who are sort of not having access to even basic life to help themselves and also stay away from Tehran, helping me as a young child to get better. So as he was a Baha'i, and he also believed that equality of man and woman, and went around the villager and asked them to bring their girls and boys in our home, and that he teach them simultaneously with me. And my mother and my two sisters stay in Tehran, only visiting us in a weekend. This was going on, and our home was so big that he made the home a major formal part of it as part of the school. And we lived in the back of the home, myself, my husband, my father, who was 60 years old, by the way, when I was born. And there was an older man when I was growing up alone with him, and yet one servant. There was those time, it was the period that Falsafi, a mullah who was talking against the Baha'is, and at certain time even gave a fatwa, means order to the Muslim to go and kill all the Baha'is and so on and so forth, was very uprising against Baha'i. He was talking and he said anybody who kill any Baha'is, anybody who kills the Baha'is will go to heaven. Therefore, especially aiming the leader. And by then, my whole, through my father's effort and my mother's effort, the whole village that we were living became Baha'i. So obviously, my father's life became a target by other villagers. And it was one summertime, and I was always told by my father, I have to have siesta, and he would take a siesta himself. But I was being a devil from childhood. I would, as soon as he fall asleep, I would get up and run and play either to the other with the other villager, and to get to them, I had make a hole in the wall that was surrounded by our home to go to the other farm and village, play with the villager or by myself. That afternoon, I was playing by myself in the front of the garden, front of the house. And to get the flavor of this house and understand the rest of the story, I would ask Sarah June to read the paragraphs for the people who don't know. Not only that you will be bored by me reading, but I have dyslexia, and it's a big question for you that why and how did I write the book? But please, Sarah.
Our house in Khaniabad was encircled by tall brick walls, and a broad metal barred gate protected the entrance. The yard was sprinkled with numerous fruit trees, including cherry and plum trees, and flowers of all kinds. We also had a gigantic oak tree that stood to the left of the gate. A long, cobbled walkway linked the gate to a large pool which was in front of the formal section of the house that was used as the school. The opposite side of the house contained our living area.
So as you see, as you can picture, the house was having a long walkway from the gate to the part that was the building. And I was playing in a very front near the gate. All of a sudden from the street, which was a sort of a not paved street, I hear the mobs shouting Allahu Akbar, and coming, and voice get sort of stronger and stronger, and about 100 or more people with the axes, with the shovel, with all kinds of the farm equipment, they came to kill my father. And as I was in the front near the door playing, they told me, go and tell your father we are here to kill him. So I just zoomed running, and the private part of the house was opposite than this front. In the back of the house, my father was fast asleep. I woke him up. They're here to kill you. Get up, get up. Slowly he get up in a manner that he was expecting everything, and yet start putting his coat on, his jacket, his tie on. Even he always wear tie and wear suit in the village. That was his habit from the university when he was teaching, and he was just carrying this all the way through. However, I keep pushing him that they are here, get up. He even started closing laces of his shoes slowly, very determined, and not having one word passing with me. I said, Dad, I have a hidden place. I have a hole in the wall that in this side that they don't know where I can get you out. He wouldn't answer me. He went around and around the house, come to the front. By then they were already in halfway through the walking toward the main house, still shouting. He put his both hand behind himself and gauge through their eyes and go forward. And by then I ran behind that big tree, hugged the tree, expecting any moment in front of my eyes, my father would be killed. And he just could keep going slowly, determined, and walking toward them, and they were coming toward him by shouting. All of a sudden, the shout and the singing that they were doing stop. Stop like a musician would stop the orchestra. I mean, the conductor would stop the orchestra. And then after that, my father is still going forward, and they start going backward, without any word passing. Back, and they got out of the gate. By then, my father got one hand in one side of the gate and another one in another. And while he was trying to close it, I ran under his arm, and he put his hand over my head and said, if you have a faith, you don't scare. That's my motto, without knowing it. I realized it when I was writing this book, that if there is anything in me that I have no fear, and it's that faith.
Beautiful. This is a story, we read it, we discussed it, and when you're saying it, it's just different, better, much better and more impactful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nushin John. So I'm moving to the second question, and the question goes, during your early career, there were very few women architects in Iran, and many eventually left the profession. Why do you think this occurred, and what specific challenges made it difficult for women to sustain architectural careers during those early years?
To my great surprise, when I came to America, 1969, anywhere I would go, I was the only woman architect. I was at those days, perhaps I was the only among 5 or 4 architects, and probably none of them had license. Nevertheless, in Iran, and like many people don't know, I was one of the 15 in my class as a woman architect. Our group were 90 people and 90 students total. Not 15 of them were architects. Sorry, 15 of them were women. And we had even woman professor. This was unheard of in America. When I was telling American that I'm an architect, and yet the next step, where are you from Iran, they would think I'm coming from a different, from Mars or somewhere else. They couldn't believe it. So why we had women more in Iran in architecture? Because our women have been always, Iranian women have been strong. When Islam conquered Iran, women went under the veil, but didn't lose that strength. We had Purandocht, Irandocht as a leader, as a queen running the country. We have, anyhow, I want to tell you a story that when I finally, in 1974, I went to Iran, back from America, went to Iran. Shahbanu Farah asked me to organize and put a team together and organize an international women conference, which I was thinking that is absolutely not correct idea, because I always thought of myself as an architect, not woman architect. So frankly, I told her, no, I'm not going to do that, because I don't believe women architectural conference should be done. She didn't get angry at me. She just said, could you go home and think any reason that might be a good idea to do that? So I went home and I thought about it, and I realized that Shah of Iran has been twice already, had major international conferences, inviting all the major architects of the world, including Louis Kahn. Many, just name are escaped from me. I have all picture with them. And so Buckminster Fuller, for instance, and all of those, and never among them was any woman. So maybe it is, at least it's a good idea, if you're going to have a conference only for women, next time Shah will invite some of these women, and women will have a chance to express their talents. So I went back to her and I said, we will do that. Would you kindly read the
Page 109. With Princess Farah's financial backing, I formed a committee with 3 other Iranian women architects and invited more than 20 women architects representing other countries to attend. We easily identified reputable architects from India, Africa, and Europe, but had difficulty finding suitable American women architects, as there were not many in those days. We invited Dennis Scott Brown, the wife and partner of renowned architect Robert Venturi, Anne Thing, Louis Kahn's former student, and Joyce Bidley. They all accepted our invitation.
And I recall that in that conference, even though I was one of the hosts, and yet I jumped over the constant complaint of Dennis Scott Brown, who came on the stage and said that we are not sort of having our own share, we are not named normally, blah, blah, blah. And I said, Dennis, you have a third partner. No one knows the name of him. No one ever talk about him, and he is the bone of your firm. And he is the one who is the doer. The theater has some people backstage, some people front stage. Your husband is the front stage and he's a backstage, and you are just complaining. And from there on, of course, we had animosity until I don't even remember if he's now alive or dead, but nevertheless, it was always, I was against this kind of request for privilege when the request was not due. And I remember when I was a professor at RPI, the women's liberation movement as usual, were pushing me to back them up, and I never felt their pain. In Iran, we were not that much suppressed. And I had my own office in Iran when I was a student. The client would accept a student to do work for, or give a list to me, even though I was a student. It was not. I never had that kind of an issue with them. So, for instance, they wanted me to help them to get a quota for university, to have a certain woman in a faculty. And I was against it. I said, listen, as a woman who will be mother one day, I do not want to have my child go under lesser quality education just because we are forcing this quota. And I really disagree with any quota. For instance, if we have one position available, and yet there are two people, one woman and one man, that the man is far better than the woman, we should absolutely choose the man. It's not so all the time I was in a state, the women's liberation were mocking me, and I was so angry at them, and they were angry at me. Until I finally, before I sold my firm 5 years, I tried to get to the government project, and that's the time I felt their pain. The government would, I cannot go off the line right now and discuss the issues that I felt in that time. By then I was 50, almost not 50, but 35 years in practice in America, yet for the first time I felt the pain of the women architects in America. But we didn't have that in Europe.
Nushin John, moving forward with the third question. And the question goes, over the course of your career, how has your design philosophy evolved in response to socio-political changes, advancements in technology, sustainability efforts, and a growing emphasis on community-focused design?
Break down this question to several sub-questions. I'm going to answer you. Number one, what is my philosophy in architecture? My philosophy in architecture is office in London, Paris, Tehran, and New York. One day I woke up and I told my husband, I don't want to do that anymore. I was a principal partner in charge of major project. All of a sudden, I said, I did not become an architect to make a rich man richer. All these developers getting richer through our effort, and I want to do something for whole. So what are you talking about? I said, I want to come up with the concept that everybody be able to use the experienced architect with the level and amount that they can afford for their project, and only deal with the small project. No more big project. I don't want to have anything to do with an international project and this and that. And when I explained to him a little bit, he said, I'm not going to sign for those shit drawing. I said, no, because by then he was the only license. I did not go for my license, but I was the principal of the offices of all these three countries. And I said, okay, I'll get my own license. And I did reciprocity. Of course, due to the people who knew me and work that I had done, my letter of recommendation was such that the office of Albany said, we want to know who you are. And nevertheless, in 1 minute, very short action, I got my reciprocity, and I started this concept called accessible architecture. Accessible architecture didn't mean ADA. Those days, ADA didn't exist. I came up with this name and registered as a corporation all by myself, but I knew that I have to have advertisement for letting people know that such a thing exists, because to have my goal was to have at least thousands of projects and have a small offices everywhere near every realtor next to it would be even I wanted to have a storefront office, a concept which was very unique. Anyhow, architects were not allowed to advertise those days. And I knew that this was on the process to change it. Architect, doctor, lawyer, and accountant were not allowed. The first day that they allowed, my first ad of 2 lines came to New York Times and said what we can do as a service to you and service of architecture. The word service and my advertisement really angered the Architectural Association, to the extent that one day the board of the association in New York, they come and they called me and they said, we want to come to your office, and we would shut your office if we didn't know your background. I said, I want you to know that please do not know my background and come and see what you can do. Knowing my colleagues' attitude and knowing what I will be confronted, I had already consulted with the lawyer and knew that what is my right, what is not my right. Anyhow, they couldn't do anything, of course, but nevertheless, they were very much against the word of service in my advertisement. And they keep asking me, if you take your advertisement, the word service out, then we are okay with it. And please read that little sentence.
Reading from page 195. If you don't believe that architecture is a service to humanity, then I do not wish to be a part of it.
It is a real strength that really came again from that faith. I knew I was going to be an architect when I was 9 years old. And yet they are threatening me to do something for people. And yet our project became so popular that all were a small project, and we would sort of monitor the ads. Each ad we would put, we were finding out the success of it, how many people called from that, how many of those calls became a client. At the beginning, when I was sitting with the client and telling them, hearing their project and telling them what we can do for them, my background overwhelmed them. Often they would think either I'm lying for my background, or I'm crazy. If I have done hotel and high rises and Newtown and all this kind of a project, then why am I trying to do their little small storefront addition and this kind of a work? So they would not even agree. So I would just, because I was trying to design the prototype in order to franchise it and in order to get it to the extent that we would do thousands of projects, every action was monitored and evaluated. So I realized that I have to get myself out of the scene. And I hired actually a woman who we call a project coordinator. She was not an architect. All we taught her, what can we do? And we make our service like a checklist that you go and buy a phone, buy a, I don't know, something that you can specify that much of it and so on and so forth. Beginning 2 hours minimum of coming to the site. Then, for instance, 20 hours for sketches or so. And if they wanted additional 40 hours for development of that sketch. And then everything until the whole supervision and construction. Having all this spelled out, you have her go sit with the client who is the first time introduced to the world of architect. By the way, I have to insert that before I started the accessible architecture firm, and open an office on Fifth Avenue next to 20th Street, which was a very unique area of New York. Anyhow, I hired two young people, go on the street and ask people, what does architects do? Do you know what does architect do? The closest answer was architect as blueprint. So I knew that the knowledge of public that I want to serve about our profession is zero. And for that, that's what I had to do, all the testing and changing and monitoring. Anyhow, when that woman would sit with the client for the first time, introduced to all these checklists, and at the end of their meeting, for instance, they would say, okay, come to the site 2 hours, then have 10 hours first sketches, and then we will go from there on. We would just multiply that by $75 those days, and then assign an architect to that project. And for the first time, architect would go, and obviously the goal was every moment of his time or her time be paid for, and every moment of his service be useful to the client. Be useful to the client. But I remember I had a project which was a storefront in very close to our office, and that was a beautiful space. And I don't remember we have asked for 40 hours for design or so. One of my staff start doing more sketches, more sketches. He was a great designer, but staying up, I keep saying, Steve, I want to know the end of the 40 hours is put your pencil down at the end. I want to know what is the outcome. And the client has to understand that. And I have to understand that if we were not, sort of estimating right, correct ourselves. And also client should know 40 hours of your time, what came out of it. And if you're not satisfied, show those designs to the client and then say, this has potential of getting better. If you want us, we can go this direction. Because as you architect know, there is no end to improve. There is no end. I just designed a little two-bedroom, two-bathroom apartment for myself in New York. If I tell you how many hours I put in, you will think I'm crazy because there is no end. So he was saying, no, I would not charge you. I want to develop it. I could not convince them that this is a program, this is a system. It would not be sustainable if we are not going to make money, if the client doesn't know how this 40 hours was spent. It has to go both ways. Anyhow, this was one of the major issue, and then many other issue, which the most important one was that the fact that the bylaw of architect did not allow shareholder of non-licensed architect. And I didn't know that when I started it. So I let you read the rest of it in the book, and we won't go on further. But based on your question, Sarah June, I also broke it down to another question, which I called it 3A. Would you would you read that one?
Yes. How can one emphasize community-focused design?
Okay, the community focus, it's part of my way of thinking about architecture from those days on. And of course, I did not become that kind of architect overnight. You have to read the book and learn how many projects was my alarm to learn that it is important for us to pay attention more to the need of the client and society and so on and so forth, instead of trying to make one more additional monument, additional building, or get additional award or this and that. And for that kind of attitude and thought, I developed a idea which is still on my plate, and I wish life allows me to bring it to fruition, but I don't know. It's a program that called My City, My Home. What I want to do with that is a half-an-hour program on television to have a group go and video the little action of any individual who have done anything on their outside of their home, which is positive or elegant or produce positive energy. For instance, an old lady would put a flower on her windowsill. If you notice, as soon as somebody does that, the next door neighbor would do the same, next door would do the same. Or if you do a little bit of paving on your front of your door, change your paving, or neighbor would do the same. And there are many, many towns all over the world that things like that has mushroomed and people have enjoyed it, but nobody has focused on giving them award, giving attention to them, and bring that to the eyes of public that why and how this overnight it didn't happen, but it happens very shortly, while when somebody does something good, another person will do the same, and on and on. So if we take those individual action and bring it on television and show it, and then also show the example of how this has been mushroomed in other places and so on and so forth, an award, give an award to that individual, or without even he or she ask for it or apply for it, and have the sort of a group of roundtable between architect, landscape architect, city planner, urbanist, and street person to talk about the significance of all these little things. And this is a very, very beautiful things that really bring the community together and make a big changes. And I can go on and on, for instance, through accessible architecture prototype, we, by doing a specific type of design that was sort of bringing the oldness, the beauty of old building in that part of the town that our office was, by peeling off all the suspended ceiling and all the and exposing the copper ceilings that was old building, but they, because that area was very luxurious before, and then it became industrial, light industry, and for saving energy, they have put a lot of sort of fake sheetrock or acoustical ceiling, and sort of made it more tangible for their need of factory. And by peeling those off and exposing them, and this decoring them with the modern furniture and modern lighting, and so these two contrasts was so elegant that if you go walk from the 20th Street to 14th Street on Fifth Avenue, everybody copied that idea because all the building had that attribute. These are natural, but we have to be conscious of the community. Thank you.
In design, yes, the 3B, sustainability efforts in design.
Sustainability is a very, very loaded word, and it can be achieved in many, many ways. My first and achieved design in which was sustainable was a hotel Mahshar, which was a design of, I was asked by a client to do a hotel for them in southern part of Iran on the road, and I tried to mimic the idea of Karmansara. And the old-fashioned caravanserai, as you know, that the caravan would come, and if for resting, they put all the animal on the ground floor in the courtyard, and then the room was above it, and the king or the head of the caravan room on the front. Having that idea, And I thought that, okay, instead of the room should be on second floor, but because it's very hot, raise put the second room on the pilloty and have a column under all the rooms and made a square shape. I wish I was able to quickly find the design of it, but nevertheless, I designed a whole a square courtyard in the middle, and the rooms were facing inside the courtyard and also outside of the courtyard in an angle that the sun doesn't hit them. And underneath all the columns, between the columns, water fountain going from one to another. That will give two chances. One, for people be able to, in that heated climate, to walk in the shadow of underneath. Another is that, and being the room above would be above the air, and the air above the floor, and the air goes underneath and above and cool them, and the water was another element for them. This idea, which was very much part of our culture, and sustainability is major part of the architecture in Iran, especially the Kabir area, which is I cannot even think of the word Kabir in English.
Desert climate.
Desert climate, thank you. You know, the age shows up. And anyhow, I received the award from the Princess Farah, and that was one of the first recognized sustainable design that I did. But also after the Haiti earthquake, which was in 2010, I used my sort of connection as a chair of Global Dialogue Committee at AIA, and designed a program that designed such that would respond to Haitian culture, climate, and attitude. That, and then I made an international competition and invited every architect to join that. Funny enough, over 800 architects from all over the world participated. And then I invited the top architect of New York to choose from those 800, and we chose 12 of them. New York Times published those 12, and which is amazingly beautiful, because the program was very much tight and very much pushing the designer to think about the need of the, again, Haitian, not everybody else. And so those 12 designs are very much in internet now, but with the name of individual. We sat in the studio, and 6 of those 12 architects came from different parts of the world with their own expenses to New York, and 6 others on Zoom, just big screen. We work together, and we design 4 design based on the goodness of each one of these 12, and we came with four design which are nameless, and we gave that to Habitat for Humanity and raised money for them, and so on and so forth. That is the type of sustainability that I talked.
So you really combine sustainability and community in one. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Both in one.
So
last but not least, yes, last but not least, and this one is about the future. So we are curious, looking ahead, what emerging trends or approaches do you think will shape the next generation of architectural practice, particularly for underrepresented women?
I think the change will happen when we architects let go of our ego and desire of being recognized or being published or doing this or that for our own belief and what we think is right. And the day that we are focusing on clients' need and really bring their needs as into our heart and produce a result that is cohesive and yet meet all the good criteria that we have learned as an architect, but it is meeting the client's need top. For that, instead of talking more, because it's a big subject, I would lead you to read the article that I wrote in 1996 and was published in Architecture and called Earns Your Client Respect, Not Your Peers. And that is my suggestion for woman and man architect. And I really believe women are not any different than men. There are many men architects who are suffering, and they are all our fault. Publics need to understand who we are, and that only can happen if we understand them and willing to serve them with our expertise and our knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was so enlightening. This was amazing. I mean, the answers, and the article, I will put that in the chat for everyone. But I just want to thank you for this time. This was a great reflection for those of us who read the book, and I'm sure inspiration for the rest of us who has not had the chance to read your book. So you can always grab it on Amazon and read, and come back to the steering committee and the book club attendees, and we'll be happy to discuss that further with.
Yes, it came through.
Perfect. So everyone is unmuted. You're all welcome to show your face, to hold, to do anything, say anything. And I have not seen questions in the chat. I don't know if you've got any, Lily John, but this is your time. So feel free to raise your hands and ask any questions that you might have. Yes, Lily John, I guess you're first.
I actually raised my hand this time. So we are planning in our BB group, thanks for attending, to set up launch a mentor-mentee program. I've worked with it in a number of places. Many people have worked with various ones. And as you're our mentor and mentor to a lot of people, what advice would you give this group here and to those who have enough experience to become mentors for the new generation of the women architects?
Again, I would say start with listening to their goal. Why did they want to be an architect? What do they understand of architecture? We cannot help anybody if we don't understand them. And there is no one answer for all. Everybody's reason might be different. And by really being with them, together, we can find a path for it. And somebody wants to choose. I read an article that says I'm sure you know that women are now exceeding by number than men in architecture, in a school at least. And they said that is because they think they can work at home and be with their children. And that was article before the COVID, that now was very popular to work at home, but in those days was not. And the women who are choosing architecture, primarily they wanted the easy life. That was their attitude. I don't believe that is the case for everybody, but if that is one's idea, one can one can encourage them. There is nothing is wrong. Nothing even is wrong with that idea of being home and being with your child, which is most important thing. If I can change anything in my life, something which I was proud of it, that I was taken from the business meeting and to the hospital to deliver child, I now am not proud of it. I am now thinking that was wrong. But nevertheless, I don't want to get to that point. Answering your question on being mentor to young architect is something that you will come up with it when you are just being with them and hearing them.
Oh, you're muted, Sarah.
Thank you, Nushin John. Mani John, I see your hands up.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to express my deep gratitude to Nushin John for being here, taking your time to share with us your vision, your philosophy, and your stories, which are so inspiring. And you also know my father, Nader Ardalan, and of course, many notable architects. I count you in that same cadre of notable architects. And one of my questions has always been, certainly we all know the role of tradition and the heritage, the rich heritage of Iranian architecture that we have in our history. And then yet it evolved with urban development and high rises and various things. So my question to you, what do you think, Nushi John, is the role of tradition in our modern society as it relates to architecture?
A big deal. First of all, culture has to be kept. I believe when we are using architecture as rubber stamp for making something which is suitable for Iran, bringing it to America, or something which is suitable in another country to others, is wrong. The climate and the culture, the attitude of people are all most important things that change the outcome of the design, obviously. But understanding our heritage, or understanding the client's heritage when we are designing, it's so important. Of course, technology is brings us, give us ability that we do many things, learn from each other and copy the advancement of the one country's in architecture to the others. But even within similarity of I mean, similarity is not the point. Even within that advancement of technology, the bond to the difference between architecture for Iran versus architecture in America, or even in America, architecture between Los Angeles and California, and architecture in New York, it has to be so different, even though we use the same technology, because the climate is different, because the orientation it's matter differently in different places, because the needs are different. So it is essential to keep the tradition, essential. And that's, if we don't know it and don't study it, we should do that. We should go back and find our own route, and also the client. I must tell you that I was designing a mansion for a Saudi prince, and he had 24 bedroom. And for me to study their need, I really had to go through their understanding of their culture, understanding that, for instance, the freedom of the man and woman are so different in that culture. The boy, their son, could have a freedom of coming directly from outside, go to his suite, and yet the daughter bedroom had to be passed from the parents' bedroom and all of that, which was unique to me. Even as an Iranian, I didn't know that. But knowing it, then I could design something which is suitable to them. That is it, very, very.
Thank you, Nushin Jan. Talin, Grigor, by the way, I'm a fan of your work, so welcome. Welcome to our BB meeting. I read your work, and all that. That's great. The screen is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for BB to organizing this. Thank you, Khanum Ehsan, for recording and sharing your experiences, because they're very unique. And as an art historian, what the effort you have placed in creating this history is extremely valuable to those of us who are trying to reconstruct this history, particularly from women architects who are extremely valuable, and their experiences have been unique from out of Iran. So my question is a historical one. I'm wondering whether you could comment on what were the unique circumstances that then enabled the extraordinary two decades of the 60s and 70s that produced so many Iranian women architects? And this is unique in world history, as you have noticed in America. When you arrived here, you were anomaly to the architectural world. So explaining, sort of remembering and what was the circumstances.
Another user in the room with you.
Yes, it's Mabel. Yes.
Yeah, but
and by accident she just. So anyhow, my answer would be that historically, Iranian women have been very strong. As I alluded before, we have 2 centuries, Iran Dukht and Puran Dukht. They were the leader of the country, and on the horseback would go front of the soldier and go to the war. And yet, even when we see the woman goes under the veil, still they are very strong at the house. The house. By the way, the word for when you ask a man to for instance, you are invited to such and such a place, they said, I have to ask my manzel, means my home. Point, it is they said that I have to ask my manzel, and some people sort of say that how awful of a man refer to a woman as manzel, means it's an object, and yet I take it as they refer to my manzel because home is the place where the heart is. And the heart is where the whole body is functioned from. The man has been really the center of the life of a man and the society, even though they did not act in front stage. And because of the choice they made, they didn't feel deprived as American women. They feel deprived because it wasn't their choice. Iranian women choose to stay home with the family, with the children, and raise the children happily. And yet it wasn't forced upon them. Of course, I'm not talking about every family, but overall, generally speaking, that has been part of the culture. Some people deny my view of even the example I gave you, a home that I have to ask my manzel. Manzel means my heart. And I interpreted it that way because that's the way I see it. I was raised in a family as a Baha'i that we believe man and woman are equal. And I never, ever thought that there is something I can do that a man can do that I cannot do. Even though I was a sick person, and my father was encouraging me to do that, even though um, it was in many ways prevent me because of my illness, but in another way, it was his philosophy that was make me where I am. And I think women in Iran are like that. As I said, we had in my class, we had a woman professor in my time, and I even now during this regime, which is really pushing the woman to go to dark ages, there are women who are running their firm with the same handkerchief. My classmate having two of them have the biggest firm in Iran and doing project with government. That is really their strength. But at certain time, the government even expel all the women from the government offices, universities, and this and that. Country collapsed almost, and then they brought them back. So woman strength, it's I think it's part of our blood. That's what I can say. But it can be passed through other culture too. It's not something that cannot be learned. Answer you somehow?
You're muted, Kelly. Okay. You're unmute, Kelly. Oh, I think she might be having some difficulty. Okay. Thank you, Nushin John. We have Zahra Rosti, hand raised with a question. Zahra John, go ahead, please.
A few comments to give. At first, I just appreciate the first part of your talk. And when you cried, I also cried. And I think many of us this at the same time, because that was the most inspiring one part for me. I am working on a research that many people, they say, why you are not scared and how you are doing this. And sometimes I was like a little bit like thinking to step back, but the first part of your talk, like I think gave me another chance to stay strong and think about to have a faith and not be scared. So thank you so much. That was really inspiring. The second part, it's more a comment even, and I would like to a little bit unpack it. As a woman that I was born and raised in Iran and faced with a lot of issues between men and women as architects, I wanted just to share also my point of view, even if that maybe many of us we don't agree with you. I am one of those. So when in Iran they said manzel, we as a woman, we see it very poetic, heart, home, where that we invest ourselves there. But in a man point of view, is a property, is something that they can control. And I am really against it. And I really don't want to use that word because the attitude is different and the view is different. And we worked so hard when I lived in Iran till I was 29. And an architect, I really worked so hard to do not be seen as an object, as a manzel. So I just wanted to unpack this. And even though it was part of culture, it was the wrong part of culture to be manzel. And I'm so happy it's changed And I wish that we can introduce that concept in with a woman point of view, that Manzil is heart, is home, is not a property. And it's a nice topic to be investigated. Just I wanted to share my comments.
I cannot thank you enough for this comment and the disagreement, because that will open up the subject more. You are not alone. Many people disagree with me, but I believe that if you feel it, is there. And if you don't feel it, it's not there. Let, let's put it that way. When I was after revolution, I came back from Iran to America, and we settled in London and established office in London. And I was coming every year in New York, in America, to renew my green card because I never wanted to be citizen, which finally is another story, that why and how I became citizen. But I was coming to the board, and I mean the JFK, and then it was just during the hostage problem of Iran and America. And the lady who was sort of seeing my passport said, where do you live? I said, London. Why are you here? I am here to renew my green card. She took my green card away and said, go and get it from the immigration office. We do not allow true residency, in a very sharp and ugly voice. I said, lady, you are not harming me. At that time, I was married to an American, and I was traveling with white passport, which was sort of more like a business passport. I said, you're not harming me. My husband will have to do something that nobody has. I said, what did I say exactly? I said, it was very bad. I said, he has to move his button and go to immigration and get it because he's an American. And when she heard that, she threw it at me. And I got my green card at the time when I was working for a firm in California. And with my own merit, with my own work, the office needed me. But the same office, before they hired me, 5 times they interviewed me. One day I told them, why are you interviewing me 5 times? They said, we don't believe that woman can do it. Then when they hired me, just a long story after story, that I became head designer of the firm and blah, blah, blah. But they hired with their own expenses to get a green card for me. I never went to the immigration office. I never felt how people suffered by becoming residents in this country. So if you don't feel it, it's not there. When I am, even in if you have somebody a sort of a bad word from your friend, if it hurts you, it hurts you. But if you don't allow to hurt you, what she or he thinks of you is his business. With that attitude, which I have built from the childhood, from my upbringing, I never felt and understood the woman's problem. But this is not that doesn't exist. Exists based on our individual. Any problem we have in our life is we are the part, we are the important part that we are creating it. I'm even seriously telling you that when Iranian after revolution could not get job, they would say, oh, we can't get job because we are Iranian. Come on. I was the same time knocking the door of the offices of government who were anti-woman, anti. If you really want to do it, you will find a way to do it. and you will change the attitude. The man will jump over you if you allow them. If you just somehow stay content and shield yourself, then their penetration doesn't penetrate you. They're sort of a sharp voice or sharp, I can't even come up with the right word when you're doing an arrow. It doesn't hit you. That is you only. And it's really, I think women in Iran has it more than any other culture. And I think men some are the one that you're just telling me that they take advantage of this word of manzil. And the many I know, they don't. They really can't make any decision without their partner, which they don't acknowledge it. Just like the front stage actor on the theater doesn't say if I'm shining in, if I'm getting all this applause because of all the sweat that the people doing behind the stage. Those people who are behind the stage are the one who really make the theater take place or action, good theater happen. But we have to enjoy that. And I thought most Iranian women have been solidly accepting their position. They didn't feel that they were deprived. You are one of those who maybe disagree, and I don't blame it, but it's all individual.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very big subject. I mean, it's cultural differences, and but funny enough, Indian women are very strong also. In that conference for the International Women Conference, we had so many women architects to choose from to invite when we didn't have any choices in America. And Africa even. African women are strong. It's really funny. I wish I was historian to be able to answer you more deeper, but this is my little observation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Shadi John from Chicago. Go for it.
Yes,
Hi.
yes.
Good to see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me? Well, thank you so much for coordinating this, and thank you, Nushin Jun, for the session, for the book, and everything. One just comment that I wanted to make: your insights about your childhood as a kid in a Baha'i family was really good. Like, you know, it's really good for us to know more about history of Baha'i community in Iran, because you know that topic is not on top of the topics that there's a lot of publications on it, and I really appreciated you sharing those insights into your life experience, your father's life experience as kind of a philosopher. I really enjoyed that part. Like everything about the book, about your work was great, obviously, but there was the icing on the top, knowing when our families as normal Muslim families, how was the experience of the minority, Baha'i minority, especially because I shared it with my mom and my mom was here. We were reading it together, and she said, like, I didn't know anything about like Baha'i families and all that because my mom is like around your age, and it was interesting um to just see like what's the perspective of a person of your generation who was even living in Tehran, pretty secular environment, but didn't know much about the situation of Baha'is. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being here in Sunday afternoon. My goodness, you guys are giving me, blushing me with your love, showering me with your love, actually, the word I was looking for. And
That was the best treat of Sunday for us, Nushinja.
Yeah, it's our honor
thank you.
to
Thank you.
have you.
Thank you.
True honor. And I want to add to Shadi Jan's comment, we have even discussed that in the book, that for some of us born after the revolution, we think the discrimination was after revolution. So I think this was a really eye-opening case for us to know that the issue is cultural. Maybe it does not really have to do with the change. It has been there, and I think it's great for us to learn and know that. So just wanted to add that. Chat that I'm hoping to get to, but I can ask that after. Is there any other question from those who are on the screen? Okay, so I'm gonna go to that question that was asked by Banujan, and it was put in the chat. And I am very much also interested in that question as someone who has been teaching for most of my career. We would like to know about your teaching. Teaching has been integral to your life. How has it shaped your career, and what meaning and satisfaction has it brought to you? How do you view your influence as an educator?
Thank you for that question. I was asked to teach at RPI right after I finished my thesis at UCLA. And my thesis was urban design in the future, and which was very unique idea of how much I believe high density in the major cities and so on and so forth. That's another issue. And I was, my thesis was chosen as one of the best example of our school and shared with other school in the country, and that was apparently the way that they were dealing with. And all of a sudden, I got a call from the Dean of the School of Architecture at RPI, which I have never heard of the name of RPI. And I was told that he had just finished my thesis, reading my thesis, and he's offering me a 3 years contract by teaching as an assistant professor. And I said, RPI, I don't recognize, and I am never going to come and teach. I don't even speak the English well yet. And also, my office just got my green card. How would I ever leave them and come and teach? I was so much against that. And he said, don't worry, I've already spoken to your boss. I've spoken to the dean of the school. I have spoken to your professor, and all of them are blessing you to come if you want to. And I went to my boss. I said, is that true that somebody by the name Patrick Quinn has asked you to let me go and teach there? He said, of course he did. And I said, would you let him? Would you let me go? He said, how can I stop your future? I said, I don't know anything about teaching and so on and so forth. And I went on and saying that you just got my green card. How would I be so dishonest to do that? He said, I would not forgive myself the rest of my life if I stop that opportunity. So they packed me up, the same thing my professor said, the same thing the dean said, and packed me up, and I drove all the way from, it's the funniest stories that I really, you should read it. I've bought a Ford Mustang from one of my professor and drove it all the way with another Iranian girlfriend from California to RPI. I was only 28 years old. I was never taught before. I didn't speak English. Even after 50 years, I don't speak English. I don't know. my sister, one day she laughed. She was teasing me and she said, Professor Asan, you are here in America for 40 years, that was 10 years ago, and you don't even speak you don't even speak well English. I said, that's correct. And as a matter of fact, I don't speak Farsi well, I don't speak French well, I don't speak English well, I don't. And then I realized that I have dyslexia, and I didn't know it until then. I've been so involved to marching the life and ignoring any disability I have, because if you realize how sick I was, and even I am right now on cancer, and I am still just finished my chemos, but I didn't want to know anything about it. I, of course, went to doctor. I did all the things they said, but I didn't want to ponder upon. So the same thing I did with teaching. Didn't know anything about it. I jump in. I work with them just like my colleagues. But first, the dean put me in a second year of the school. Second year of design, I think first and second is the most important and most difficult year of teaching architecture. And I was pressing this poor students so much that I see that I'm breaking them. So I came to the dean after 3 months that was I was there, and I put my resignation in front of him. He said, "What? We brought you with California, we paid all these expenses and blah, 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 blah." I said, "Do you want me to kill them all and myself? I don't know how to teach them. I cannot get to them. I cannot communicate with them. I really don't know how to achieve what you want, what needs to be achieved." And he said, "Okay, I'll put you in a 5th year." I blossomed. I worked with them until 2 o'clock in the morning. Every one of my students, every one of them became the best architect of New York. Just about in September, last September, they were having the 50th anniversary of those class, my 4th and 5th year class. And they were honoring me. And I told them, I didn't know what I'm doing. They said, "You were the hardest ever professor we ever had. But what we learned from you, it was what we are." They didn't learn from me. They learned from themselves. All I was doing, I was pushing them to be themselves, to not to copy somebody else, to not to think about somebody else, not to. And I remember one story I'm going to tell you. It's an interesting story. The 5th year student, I had one girl in my class, only one woman in whole School of Architecture of RPR, one of the best and oldest School of Architecture in America, which I didn't know about it. And as a matter of fact, afterward, when Harvard asked me to teach, the dean said, "I'm not going to let you go." And I said, you better let me, because my father doesn't know where is RPI, but if I tell him I'm teaching at Harvard, he will be happy. And he said, "I'll sue you." He said, "Go ahead." I said, "Go ahead and sue me. I'm going to go if they ask me." And then eventually he allowed me to do both. And anyhow, coming back to this student, the 5th year student, toward the end of the semester or middle of semester, she just quit, decided to quit, and said that, "You are the only professor who are making me understand that I'm not good in architecture. Everybody else wanted to have a token woman. Consequently, they kept me going. But you let me know that." I said, "What?" She was most talented, but what I was doing, I was pushing her so much that she broke. And I keep telling her, "Marsha, you are talented. Don't do that to yourself." She said, "Don't change your mind. I have already made up my mind and I'm going to quit." And da, 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 da. I cannot tell you how much I suffer by her decision. Coming home, even cried. I said, I'm taking away the future of somebody. What kind of a teacher I am? And finally, I came up with the idea, okay, I go and tell her, I cannot change your mind, but give yourself one more week. And within that week, do as I tell you without asking question, and anything that I tell you, any project I tell you to do it and hang it on the wall. Every day I come and give you a new task and do it only up to the end of the day and hang it on the wall on your cubic. And then at the end of the week, if you still think you want to quit, go ahead, quit. I cannot stop you. And I did every day, different subject came, no judgment, no guidance, no nothing. She was a talented, but nobody pushed her to get to her real character. And because she was quitting, she was free, she was not thinking of any score or judgment or anything. Put it up, put it up. At the end, we sat together and we both cried with joy of seeing such a beautiful, beautiful design of every one of them scattered one day. I said, do you still think you can quit? And we hug each other. And of course, her thesis became the best thesis of the school. And then the New York Times printed it. And then the Gurus and Associate hired her. And then she became partner of a firm. All this. So what I'm trying to tell you, I think I rely on my intuition. I rely on hard work. I'm not advocating the answer is only to be hard on the student, but because I was always hard on myself and I was hard on the student and the result was good. But nevertheless, I think it was intuition. And I have another long story to tell you, which the time probably doesn't allow me, but you may read it. That was my first ever teaching elementary school for 1 year. And that was when I went to the School of Architecture. I gave up my beautician and I started to teach part-time, and how God helped me, or somehow the idea of the answer to the problem comes to me, is probably a connection to that story of the faith. I don't know what else to tell you. There is no formula for teaching except that be honest to your own self and try to bring the best of the students out. And one other thing I can add, when I was teaching in China, it was very, very hard to get to them to understand the spirit of a space, the concept of how to design that will become to vibrate, to create a positive energy and uplift you. Their attitude was that design has to be monumental and all of that. And I remember feeling that I'm not getting into them. Then one day I asked the class to go with me to the campus, walk together, and while we were walking, we approached a very monumental building that was designed by a top architect, Chinese architect professor of the same university, and that was Department of, I don't know, economy or so. It was huge, it was cold, it was very, very heavy duty building. And I asked my student while we were marching toward it, I said, what do you feel? No, but when I asked them, what do you feel? I mean, what do you think is possible? What do you feel? And nobody answered me, and keep asking, keep repeating. And maybe we got closer. And finally somebody said, I feel cold. I said, wow, I got it. And then we got more close to it and we got into the entrance, and the entrance was big and monumental. And yet, when you go to the lobby, was so short a distance between the wall in front of you and the entrance that was feel like you hit your wall from that monument to that. And they said, I feel rejected. Wow. And then on and on and on, word came out that was connecting to their feeling and their spirit. Then we came back to the class, and then I was able to do the 3 months course that I was supposed to have successful. It's all a matter of how you feel at the time and how you can connect to the situation.
Thank you so much, Nushin John. I know we are 10 minutes over the time, and I want to be very mindful of your evening and the time you need to rest and all that. It's up to you. We do have one more hand up on the screen. If you don't mind, we asked the
Last
Mahsa,
question.
the last question.
Please go ahead.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
have a 7 o'clock Zoom, and I would have a little dinner before that, and that's
Okay.
perfectly fine. Please go ahead.
thank you.
Mahsa.
We appreciate it. Mahsa John, please go for it. Oh, maybe the unmute.
Quick, the story was like very inspiring. I was wondering if you have like a website or a book that you gathered all of your I don't know, work or artwork that you've done so far. I'm just so eager to know what artwork came out of this mindset and this point of view.
You made my heart cry, because I did have a website with most of my article and some of my work was there, and it still is half bake of it, or a skeleton of it is there, as called second opinion design, which is another concept which did not exist in architecture, and I'm doing it. And unfortunately, 2 years ago, it was hacked by hacker, which nobody knows why. What would they gain out of hacking an architectural? And since then, I haven't had energy to bring it back to real life. And it's none of the article is by pushing button come back to reality, which was all of them that was published was could be by the link would come to your access, and also many of the issues. And then another issue, things that I feel very sad. Due to my sickness, I have not been able to finish the book of a Spirit of a Space. And I never, ever thought that my memoir will go publish ahead of the Spirit of a Space. And if somebody would say that you will share your life story before your philosophy in architecture and this book, that I really, really hope that I finish. And I would say never, but don't say never, ever, because it will happen to you. And during the COVID, I concentrated on that, because on my memoir, and I wrote it only for my grandchildren. I never thought that people would even consider reading it, really, honestly. And I never approached any publisher. I put it in Amazon myself, and then amazed me that people like it, amazed me that even the men like it. I had recently formal ambassador of, I won't want to make the reference of which country, called me and said, I read your book and I ordered it. I finished at 3 o'clock in the morning. I ordered it for my daughter and my son, and went on and said, that's the best book I read. I said, don't say that. That means you haven't read any good book. And swear to God, this is all unusually unusual and absolutely not expected. And it made me more fearful of writing the real book of art, accessible art. I mean, a Spirit of Space, because I'm now afraid that, but I hope I do. And I'm sorry for, if any of you wants to have a help of rebuilding my website, I actually don't, I need myself first to have energy to put that, all the old article and pictures back together. It's a lot was lost. And so I don't have it, but it is, if you go, a skeleton of it is there, secondopiniondesign.com.
I just shared that in the chat, and I want to also tell you there's a number of really remarkable comments in the chat, and thanking you and for taking the time, and everyone feels honored, and there's just so much we learned from you. On behalf of the steering committee and the entire BB community, I want to thank you, Nushin Jan, for this time of reflection and of camaraderie and community building. So we do appreciate you. We do appreciate this time. And I think we're all going to walk away from the screen inspired. Can talk about myself, your fearlessness and just not accepting no, and accepting things as they are. Perfectionism is a flaw that the field of architecture is pushing us towards. And I think what I learned from you is that just take it in, be genuine, accept who you are. If it's not speaking English perfectly, that's fine. Just move forward, because you do have other contributions that you can offer to the world. And just by depriving the world of not talking about it because English may not be perfect, I think it's not justice to the world. So thank you very much. I'm sure we're going to be in communication with you after this. I will be. And I look forward to reading your next book or picking it up for the next BB book club event. So please write it soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I hope you
This
have
has
a
been
great
an honor.
evening. Hope you have a great evening in Florida. Enjoy the warm weather. And thanks everyone for joining. This was the first best event for the year 2025.
Our first best
And
speaker.
we wish you Salamati, Nushinjan. We wish you Salamati.
Thank you. That's all. Your prayer and friends' prayer has cut me through the good health now. I am getting my energy little by little every day. And thank you for inviting me. Thank you, all of you.
We love you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a nice evening.
Bye, everyone.